Hi guys, welcome back to another YFTV. I have to say that I never imagined when we started doing YFTV that we'd still be doing it here in November and December, but here we are heading back into another period of lockdown for however long it's going to be. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a wee bit fed up. It's wearing me down a wee bit, the thought of being stuck in the house again and not really knowing what's going on. But as always, we just have to kind of stick it out and trust God that he knows what he's doing and he's got control over the situation. So this morning, I just want to talk to you about, I want to share with you something that I have been thinking about from a devotional book that I've been using. And it comes from the book of Joshua. And Joshua's found right at the start of the New Testament, just after Deuteronomy. So we're going to read from chapter 1 right at the beginning. And the book opens with the death of Moses. He's a character I'm sure you'll have heard of. And he frees the Israelites from Egypt. And they wander in the desert for 40 years with Moses at their helm, and he's leading them. And it's the end of that story that we kind of jump in here today. And as you can probably guess, the book is about a man called Joshua. And we kind of slide in right at the start of his big role that he has to play in the Israelites and in that part of history. So I'm sure some of you will be familiar with the story from Sunday school and whatnot. But when Moses dies, Joshua is told by God that he's to lead the Israelites as Moses' successor. So Moses has passed away and he has to take the lead and the reins and say that he's in charge now. And God says that it will be Joshua who finally leads the Israelites into the promised land of Canaan. So this is what the Israelites have been planning and promised and waiting for when they left Egypt. So you can imagine that for 40 years this has been building up, and now that Joshua's taken the reins, you can imagine that the pressure is kind of on Joshua to deliver them and deliver the people what they'd been waiting for. So where I want to enter the story is when Joshua takes over, he has to lead the Israelites into the promised land, and to do that, what he has to do is he's tasked with getting all of these people over the River Jordan. Now we're talking about a lot of people, all of their stuff, all of their animals, and he has to get them all across this river with a few exceptions. So Joshua has picked up this new position as leader. He's never done it before, and he has now got this huge task ahead of him that is very daunting. You can imagine the kind of pressure that he'd be under, that all the people want to know what's going on, when are we crossing the river, how are we crossing the river, how are we going to get all our stuff over there, are we going to get wet? But he's been given this big task by God, and that's what I want to read from. So we're going to read from Joshua chapter 1. And after telling Joshua his plan, God says, in verse 9, God says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." So that's kind of just what I want to remind you guys of this morning as we're headed into lockdown. Kind of similar to Joshua, it's quite a parallel situation. That I know it seems like we've been doing this for ages, but this is still a really uncertain time, a really scary time. We've never been through anything like this ever before, and although it does seem like we've been doing it for a really long time, we still don't entirely know what to expect. And I just thought that tied in really well with what I'm sure Joshua felt, was that he'd never done this before. He didn't know how to lead all these people, and I'm sure he was feeling uncertain and scared about everything. So while we're in this period of not really knowing what's going on, how can we fall back and trust in God and that he has this situation sort of handled? So if we're thinking about what life is going to be like over Christmas and that kind of thing, what are we going to do next year when schools go back and all sorts? But I want to remind you this morning that our God is bigger than that, and he promises to always be with us no matter what. He tells us, be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid, because he ultimately is in control of everything. And although it's hard to imagine a lot of the time that God planned this and he can still work in situations like this, he absolutely can. So we just need to trust that the God of all creation, the God who created the whole world and the whole universe, is with us personally through this. He loves us enough to care about our situations personally, whether that's you individually going through something that maybe nobody else knows about, or you're just trying to deal with COVID and everything that means, or anything else in between, that God's with us and He wants the best for us and He's got a plan for our lives. So one of the things, especially for me, that really challenged me about this right now is that I'm in the middle of looking for graduate jobs. I graduate university in May as long as everything goes to plan. And so right now I'm applying to different places and different companies for a job in line with what I studied. And it feels a bit like I imagine Joshua felt, although slightly different scale, I'm sure, that I've had this plan for a really long time to get to the end of university and graduate. And Joshua and the Israelites have had this plan for a really long time to get to the promised land. But just like Joshua, I don't really know what to expect now, and the Israelites don't know what to expect either. They're camped at the side of this river, and they don't know how they're going to get across the river into the promised land. And right now, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of university. Is COVID still going to be kicking around? Are we going to be doing jobs like normal, or what's happening at all? So at the moment, it's really hard for me just to trust God and know that He will have a plan that is the best thing for me, even though right now it feels totally up in the air. And I think that's definitely similar to what the Israelites would have felt. And I'm sure that for a lot of you guys, we'll be doing things like exams after Christmas. And even if you're headed off to university next year, what does that look like? And it's all just a bit up in the air and we don't have a control. But I want to remind you guys that God has it. And that is something that we all struggle with all the time, but we absolutely can trust God to know what's best for us and to work out His plans even in circumstances that we just cannot control at all. So I hope that you guys can find something in your life that this can apply to. I'm sure you can. I'm 100% sure that all of you can. If not COVID and lockdown, anything else. But just learn to trust God in that situation and be strong and courageous and to know that God's with you. So I'll just pray before we wrap up. Dear God, I thank you that you are the God of all creation. Lord, you know everything about us. You know our deepest fears and what we get nervous about when no one else thinks about these things, Lord. God, I just pray that you would help us to have a really strong sense of your presence just now, that we would be able to take heart in that and be strong and courageous when it comes down to these difficult times, Lord. God, I just pray as we all head into Christmas that we would be relaxed about things, that we wouldn't be too anxious about the situation as it's unfolding, and I pray that we would just all have a good time when it comes around. God, I just pray too for our government as they sort of lead the way in these things. Lord, I pray that you would give them wisdom to know what to do and to make the correct decisions, Father. So God, just be with us as we head into this week. In your name, amen. So guys, thanks for tuning in once again. I hope you guys have a really good week, and hopefully we'll see you on Zoom tonight. Cheers.